Hello, world. Welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. Hello, world, and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We're broadcasting live from the Joy Virtual Studio right here in the beautiful Finger Lakes region of New York State. It is so great to be with all of you today. It is Thursday, April 9th, and I am so thrilled today to welcome into the Joy Virtual Studio a very special guest. I cannot believe after all of these years, 6 years post the devastating lockdowns of 2020, I haven't interviewed on this platform Dr. Kelly Victory. But today, finally, we have her in studio and we have a lot to discuss today about the health of the American people, the medical industrial complex, medical freedom, the COVID vaccines, and cancers. There is so much to discuss. Dr. Kelly Victory, welcome to the Ask Jay Show. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to join you.
I'm such a huge fan, and I will never forget the dark days of COVID lockdowns in 2020 and 2021. There were so few voices out there who were talking about the same things that I was talking about, questioning the same protocols that we were questioning. And there was you with Dr. Drew, very often presenting him with information that he hadn't been aware of as we kind of worked through this terrible time. Before we get started, I just really want to thank you for your voice. You were a beacon during that time, and there were so many of us with smaller platforms that really relied on you and the work that you were doing. You were right about so many things, and can you believe here we are 6 years later, still grappling with a lot of the same issues, even though we're not locked down. I just really appreciate you, so thank you for that.
Thank you so much for the feedback. It certainly was. There were some dark days, as you know. There were days where I really questioned what I was doing, but simply couldn't quit. I said, you know, I may die before this is all over, but I told many people, I said, I know I will end up on the right side of history. Because, you know, it sounds trite, Shannon, but the reality is I wasn't saying the things I was saying from day one. I mean, very early, January of 2020, I wasn't saying what I was saying because I was a really good guesser. I was saying what I was saying because that's what the science has always told us. We've always known that masks do virtually nothing to stop the spread of a respiratory virus. We know that lockdowns always cause more harm than good. There is no such entity as, you know, locking down or quarantining healthy people. You quarantine sick people, not healthy people, and on and on. We knew in those very early days that children were at such a de minimis risk from COVID as to be fundamentally zero, and that there was no rationale for keeping them out of school, out of sporting events, and those sorts of things. And then God only knows when they started talking about an mRNA-based, quote, vaccine, the wheels came off the bus. And I said, this is insanity. This is a technology, a platform that has been worked on for decades. That is true. And it has failed every single time. So I was out there saying it slowly over time. More and more people came to speak. But the reality is we are still at a huge risk, Shannon, for this happening again. And by this, what I mean is the powers that be, governmental agencies, quote unquote, public health experts, states, you know, whoever it is, medical boards, using and employing fear as a way to manipulate people's actions or behaviors. It was quite stunning to see for me how quickly so many people were willing to give up their civil liberties, how quickly my own colleagues were willing to adopt pseudoscience, ridiculous measures in order to, you know, keep from having their licenses threatened or from being shunned in their communities or whatever it was. But fear was ultimately the common denominator. And if nothing else, I'm hoping that people realized just how they could be manipulated, how important, how forcible that particular thing was, because the only way to keep from falling prey to it again is to say, wow, I fell for some stuff. Why did I do that? Why did I behave the way that I did? So that you can, really strengthen your resolve not to fall for it the next time.
Well, it's so important. And it does seem as if there's always some big, super scary pandemic, scamdemic lurking around the
Mm-hmm.
corner. And it's only a matter of time that they'll get the apparatus up and running again, the
Mm-hmm.
censorship machine, the propaganda machine, because nothing really fundamentally has changed in terms of
Right.
infrastructure within our federal government, despite an election, the support of the medical freedom community,
Mm-hmm.
Bobby Kennedy Jr., who we thought was going to champion the rights of those who were fighting for medical freedom. Uh, Despite the rhetoric, very little, at least from my perspective, has changed. In fact, we're still under the emergency declaration that they used to, thrust us into this, the military operation that led to Operation Warp Speed and the rollout of the shot, which caused so many problems. So I guess my first question for you is, as someone who has covered this very closely and has been fighting with science, with common sense, with data and the studies since day one, how satisfied are you today with the actions of this presidency, Bobby Kennedy over at HHS, in terms of ripping away liability protection from the pharmaceutical companies,
Mm-hmm.
acknowledging the death and destruction of the COVID shots? I mean, so many COVID vaccine injured, still suffering. From your perspective, what are the wins and what are the losses as we look at this 6 years out?
Well, it's a great question. I'm actually just writing a talk that I'm going to be giving later this month on exactly that topic, the hits, the misses, and the hidden agendas of HHS. We're now 14 months into Robert Kennedy Jr.'s leadership at HHS. Full disclosure, I know Bobby well. We are friends. I've known him for many, many years, and I think highly of him. I believe that his intentions are in the right place. I also want to give credit where credit is due in terms of what HHS has accomplished. They certainly are addressing the chronic disease issue in this country. 80% of adults have at least one chronic condition: hypertension, heart disease, diabetes, asthma, whatever it is. And they are addressing that, looking at the toxins in our food system and in our environment, trying to address issues with pesticides, the fact that our food pyramid was fundamentally upside down and relied heavily on carbohydrates and toxic seed oils. They're addressing the foods that people are allowed to buy on public assistance, the SNAP program,
Right.
and what foods we serve in hospitals. All good things. They're addressing and looking a task force to look at autism, and they're looking at microplastics. But the harsh reality, Shannon, is that despite what Bobby Kennedy and other people might want to do in Washington, there are forces more powerful than they. I don't think for a minute, unfortunately, that Bobby Kennedy will be allowed to remove the COVID mRNA shots from the market, that they will be allowed to expose the overwhelming evidence of harms of those shots, that they will be allowed to remove the liability protection. As much as I want those things to happen, and to be clear, to clarify, the liability protection that is enjoyed by the pharmaceutical companies that make vaccines is a result of the 1986 National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act that was passed by Congress all those years ago. Prior to 1986 and that liability protection, the number of vaccines on the childhood vaccine schedule was somewhere between 6 and 8, depending on what state you lived in. Now that number burgeoned up to 85 shots.
Right.
Think about that. From birth to age 18, 85 shots on the childhood vaccine schedule. So under Bobby Kennedy's guidance and leadership, they pared that down. President Trump supported the idea that we should be more in line with other westernized countries. Specifically, they looked at Denmark that has a total of 11 shots. So they got rid of all these. And when I say got rid of, they didn't eliminate them from the market. They didn't eliminate insurance companies for paying for them. They took them off of the childhood vaccine schedule, which is what schools and states typically use to drive what the mandates are to attend school, for example, or to participate in things. Unfortunately, as soon as that was done, a rogue district court judge up in the People's Republic of Massachusetts, Brian Murphy, a Biden-appointed judge, took on a case from the American Academy of Pediatrics, of all things. Why would the American Academy of Pediatrics be aghast at the idea that the vaccine schedule was being pared down? And it's entirely because their funding comes from the pharmaceutical companies. The American Academy of Pediatrics is the lapdog of big pharma. And they brought this case to Judge Brian Murphy, who with a simple, bang of the gavel, undid everything that Bobby Kennedy and HHS did with regard to vaccines over the past 14 months. He eliminated every decision they made with regard to the vaccine schedule. It means if this stands, and this ruling by Judge Murphy stands, and I certainly hope that it doesn't, I don't think that it will, but if it does, it means mercury is back in vaccines, hepatitis B vaccines for newborn babies back in, COVID mandated shots for kids to attend school, and we're back up to the 85 shots in 18 years. So the world is sort of upside down. I'm trying to give credit, as I said, where credit's due to the work they're trying to do, but they're fighting an uphill battle.
You're much nicer than I am. And I congratulate you on your diplomacy. I appreciate that. We need it. But you did make the statement that you made that Bobby Kennedy will not be allowed to address COVID-19 vaccine injury. He won't be allowed to address the toxic nature of so many of the shots on the childhood vaccine schedule. He won't be allowed to address vaccine mandates for children across the country. In New York State and California, children are still denied daycare, preschool, elementary education, secondary education, if they are not 100% following the childhood vaccine schedule. And parents and physicians and pediatricians are being persecuted in both of these states who are allowing for exemptions, medical exemptions. It's absolutely terrible. But my question is, I mean, we have a president who appointed Bobby Kennedy Jr., who said that he was going to address medical freedom and some of these issues. We have Bobby Kennedy Jr., who's in a position of power. He, at the very least, has a bully pulpit. Who is, or what is the entity that won't allow him to do what he said he was going to do? And if he's not allowed to do it, shouldn't he have candor and tell the American people, listen, my hands are tied. I mean, if it were me in that position, Dr. Victory, I'd say, listen, we did everything we could. We're not getting anything done. If anything, we're moving backwards right now because, people are forgetting about what happened. I mean, what is it that he can even achieve at HHS moving forward? And again, who are the people tying his hands? What is it?
Yeah, well, a philosophical statement to start with. I think if I were in Bobby's shoes, I would try not to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And say, look, we aren't going to get everything we want, and there are huge things that we're not going to get done. But if we are able to remove seed oils, if we're able to change school lunches, if we're able to get fluoride out of the water, if we're able to address microplastics and put some significant money towards autism research and on, that let's take those as wins and understand that some of these huge things we are not going to get done, but
at least through HHS, right?
Exactly, through HHS. Now, to answer your question, who do I think's actually pulling the strings? That's a complex question, this is purely my opinion. I think that there are people as close as, first of all, President Trump certainly has still not acknowledged that the COVID shots have caused disastrous, results and are responsible for millions and millions of injuries. I know after speaking to, Senator Ron Johnson told me personally that he tried to present to President Trump the data back just before the election, and that President Trump wasn't interested at that time in even seeing it. I think because he looks at Operation Warp Speed still as a crown jewel of his first administration. So that remains problematic. I think there are people in the Oval Office like Susie Wiles, who has very, very deep ties to Big Pharma. One might wonder about Casey and Callie Means, the brother and sister duo who parachuted in out of nowhere, absolutely unknowns, who all of a sudden are in every talk show, Joe Rogan, The View, they're everywhere and in between, and in the White House. Callie Means landed a job as a top advisor to Bobby Kennedy. They clearly, their father, the Casey and Callie Means' father, is a big pharma executive, has huge ties to Big Pharma. And Callie Means went from an advisor now to a top role in the White House, actually advising the president. These are people whose credentials are seriously in question. Dr. Casey Means, who is the current nominee for Surgeon General, has not been appointed yet, or confirmed, I should say. She's the nominee. This is somebody who didn't finish a residency. She doesn't have a medical license. She's never treated a patient outside of her training. This is not who should be the nation's top doctor, because she simply will not have the respect of the tens and tens of thousands of healthcare professionals who should be looking up to the Surgeon General. So I think there are deep pharmaceutical ties here. The pharma lobby is the biggest, most powerful lobby in Washington, D.C., and you cannot underestimate them. As I said, they've got the American Academy of Pediatrics doing their dirty work for them. If you go to, and this isn't Dr. Kelly Victor's opinion, go to the American Academy of Pediatrics website and look at their top donors. Every one of them is a big pharmaceutical company. And I guarantee you, AAP is not going to risk that funding in order to, save a few lives.
Right. Grady Means, by the way, that is the father of Callie and Casey Means, was an attaché. I mean, they were perma figures in Washington, D.C., deeply connected. In fact, he worked as a special assistant to Nelson Rockefeller, I believe, back in the day. He holds multiple patents on drone technology, completely tethered to the pharmaceutical industry. And the Casey Means, I mean, that's one of the most bizarre situations. I mean, she has been the nomination for Surgeon General for like a year. And then she disappeared. And now she's back. She pokes her head out. No one wants her, really. But she's just awaiting a nomination. It's a very, very strange situation. One that I think that we could have predicted. Susie Wiles came in to the Trump campaign very early on in the nomination process. And I was reporting on her. I'm like, okay, this is who this woman is. No one listened to me. They never do, but that's okay. Neither here nor there. So we really are in, I mean, there's good news, Dr. Victory, I think, because aside from what is happening at HHS and within the federal government in Washington, D.C., the market, the culture is rejecting the COVID shots 100%. And also many aspects of the childhood vaccine schedule, as we've seen from certain polls, and also basic trust in the institutions of the medical industrial complex. And I want to talk about that when we come back from break, because I think that's the good news. And you're working with the wellness company. One of the things I love about the wellness company is that through everything that they're doing, whether it's a second opinion, the emergency medical kits, the shield product that you are spearheading with them for cancer prevention and all of these aspects. They are fighting against that fear that you mentioned, right? How do you battle against this? Well, number one, we have to be prepared and we have to understand our bodies, be open to new ideas, but also have access to treatments and alternative healthcare and a parallel system, which I think is really important. And so all of that good news we're going to talk about in just a minute, including a phenomenal report from Nicholas Holscher and the results of a groundbreaking analysis study done through the Wellness Company, Dr. Peter McCullough, and Dr. Harvey Risch, through the President's Cancer Panel on ivermectin and menbendazole in treating cancer, which I can't wait. I have the whole report here, and I can't wait to get your thoughts on that, Dr. Victory. As someone, you are a cancer survivor and you're battling, and I want to hear about your story as well. But before we go to break, one of the areas that causes some of the greatest concern for me, Dr. Victory, is in this narrative that has been embraced by MAHA in many ways, that it's the food, it's the air, it's the water, it's the, all of these things. It can never be the shots. It can never be the childhood vaccine schedule. It can never be the COVID shots, but everything else is going to kill you, right? Lurking around the corner, you're going to be poisoned. You're going to, these toxic elements. And yes, certainly people don't want glyphosate sprayed on their food, and they don't want microplastics in their food or their water. But at the end of the day, when you look at injection versus ingestion and chronic disease, I worry that this discussion, that this obsession over all of the other things in our environment that could be killing us, while omitting any discussion about the injections, is very damaging and makes it difficult for people to really put into perspective how dangerous shots can be. Your thoughts on that?
No, I think that is shared, that concept, that thought, Shannon, is shared by many people, including me. It's the constantly, look at the shiny object over here so that we don't talk about the elephant in the room, which is vaccines. Remember, look, it wasn't that long ago that they announced, oh, it looks like it's Tylenol that causes autism. Because God forbid it would be the reason the child got the Tylenol, was because he or she developed malaise and fever and muscle pain after getting what? A vaccine or 7, on that day in the doctor's office. So believe me, they're always trying to obfuscate. They never want you to look at the vaccines. Frankly, I personally believe, and I have done a 180 over a period of about the last 10 to 12 years with regard to vaccines and their association, I believe, with autism. And part of my transition in that is on the basis of the quite robust vaccinated versus unvaccinated studies that have been done. The US government has refused to do it. But Bobby Kennedy, along with his colleague Brian Hooker, actually looked at those populations and they are available. The Amish are one, but there are other pockets of completely unvaccinated individuals. And it turns out that those completely unvaccinated populations are not just healthier than vaccinated populations, they are healthier by orders of magnitude. They couldn't find an incidence of autism. They couldn't find a peanut allergy. They couldn't find a childhood asthma case, and on and on, rates of cancers, all these things. So I think when you look at this really compelling data with regard to, let's look at, are vaccines really making us healthier? I know that, and Dr. Bowden, who you know well, would agree that we were fundamentally lied to during our training. We were taught that it was the polio vaccine, for example, that ended the scourge of polio in this country, when that simply isn't the case. If you look at the timeline, rates of polio and certainly significant illness from polio had all but fallen to zero before the vaccine was ever rolled out. Likewise with measles and other things. So we were led to believe that vaccines were the greatest invention in mankind for health and public health and medicine, when in fact that isn't the case. That doesn't make me, quote, anti-vaccine. What it makes me is saying, let's actually look at what vaccines are capable of doing, what they're not, and which ones are worth us continuing to pursue. I maintain, and I say it every day at some point, you cannot vaccinate your way to good health.
Right.
You aren't doing the basics, good nutrition, daily exercise, adequate sleep, stress mitigation, and on, and avoiding other environmental toxins, then there isn't a vaccine on the planet that is going to deliver you to good health. And I think we need to stop thinking about them that way.
I absolutely agree with you. And this is my own opinion and, in terms of the decisions for my family. But at this point, based on the research that I've done and what I have observed over the past 10 to 12 years, and I'm the exact same as you. It's been about 12 years in
Yeah.
my transformation. I'm not a doctor, but as a mother, I gave my children all the vaccines. It wasn't until both of my children were injured by the DTaP polio. My son developed epilepsy about 1 week post DTaP polio, and my daughter had a massive febrile seizure after DTaP polio that landed her in the hospital. It was very serious. So it was only after that that I began to go down the rabbit
Yeah.
hole. But at this point in my life, I will never take another shot
Yeah.
ever. Not a
No, I agree.
vaccine, not a flu shot, not a shingle shot, not a COVID
Yeah.
shot. Like there's really nothing that I have seen, and I would have to see compelling evidence if I were ever to do it again. But these injections, I think, cause so many more problems than they solve. And I do think that more and more people are beginning to do their own research and come to some
Mm-hmm.
of these conclusions, which leads us to the good news when we come back on the Shannon Joy Show. And that is, two great headlines. First, Pfizer has halted a COVID vaccine clinical trial because they didn't have enough participants.
Exactly.
All right. So these are like the diehard, trust the science. They wore 7 masks during COVID
Yeah.
and have had 8 shots. They can't even get enough participants to run the trial. And then the follow-up headline on that, BioNTech is now shuttering the Singapore mRNA manufacturing site amid pipeline pivot. And this was reported on April 3rd, 2026. So there's good news. The culture is
Yes.
resisting despite what's happening in Washington, D.C., thanks to people like you and our friends at the Wellness Company. And then also this amazing, I want to talk about cancer with you and when we come
Mm-hmm.
back, because this just, it just warms my heart that we are beginning to now see the studies and
Yeah.
the research on ivermectin plus menbendazole.
Yeah.
You are personally connected to this, obviously, your own struggle with cancer. So I want to talk about that with you when we come back. So keep it tuned right here. We're going to get to the good news, how to stay safe, how to keep safe. We'll talk about Shield in a moment too, which is
Mm-hmm.
something that you put together. Really privileged to be joined by Dr. Kelly Victory today. Make sure you follow her on the Twitter. Her handle is at Dr. Dr. Kelly Victory, and you can access all of her insights and information there. We'll be back in a moment to continue with Dr. Kelly Victory right here on the Shannon Joy Show. Hey everyone, I am so proud to recommend Shift Gold to this audience as the gold standard for metals purchasing and investing. I couldn't ask for a better partner to help people understand gold and silver and use them as strategic instruments to protect their family's financial future. Peter Schiff's teaching on markets has shaped my understanding of how economies grow and why they collapse. And I've used him as a critical source for my daily broadcast for over 10 years. The Shannon Joy Show audience already knows and loves Peter because he has been such a treasured educator over the years. He is now the preeminent source for rock solid financial analysis around the world. And this is because he understands the immutable laws of natural markets and his stalwart unwillingness to veer from absolute truths, regardless of economic fads and political pressures. Bottom line, he doesn't sell out. And that means a lot to me. I trust Shift Gold and you can too. Go to shiftgold.com/joy today to get started. You'll find some of the lowest spot prices for gold and silver and critical information on protecting your retirement savings with a gold or silver IRA. That's www.shiftgold.com/joy. Hedge against the chaos with our friends over at Shift Gold. Sat123.com/joy. Everything that you're going to need for preparation: generators, solar panels, Faraday products. If you want to disappear and protect yourself from the surveillance state, they have an entire line of amazing Faraday products called dark bags. They're always 10% off at the satellite phone store if you go to sat123.com/joy. That is sat123.com/joy. The satellite phone store has supported the Shannon Joy Show for many years. They are amazing partners, and let's help the companies that help keep the lights on here at the Shannon Joy Show. So if you are in the market for any of their products or services, make sure you use that promo code JOY and go to sat123.com/joy. That's sat123.com/joy. Please head over to theshannonjoy.com, theshannonjoy.com. This is my independent platform. It is my website. I own it. And the email list that I have created with all of you, those of you who have signed up for the Shannon Joy daily email, it is so important. It's the most critical element in terms of my connection to all of you. Should I be deplatformed on YouTube or Twitter or Rumble or any of the platforms that we are pushed out on today, it is my one line to all of you. It's where I can contact you directly and let you know where to find the show. I will never forget the censorship of 2020. I was permanently suspended on Twitter. I was completely shadow banned on Facebook. I lost the entirety of both audiences in the span of 30 days. In the early days of the Shannon Joy Show, I was completely yanked off of a radio station because I continued to critique Donald Trump, and it was a right-wing radio station. Overnight, I lost my entire platform. Thank God 10 years ago, or was 8 years ago, I had built up a presence on Twitter and Facebook and was able to continue the show until I moved it to another platform, a 50,000 watt radio station just down the road. But I am very familiar with being deplatformed and it happening very fast. That email list is everything. It is my pipeline to all of you. So if you haven't signed up for the SJ email list, please do so today. Go to theshannonjoy.com. That is theshannonjoy.com, and make sure that we're connected. Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. Today, we're joined by Dr. Kelly Victory. She's a board-certified trauma and emergency physician. She is a specialist in disaster preparedness, and she's also the chief emergency and disaster medicine at the Wellness Company. She has decades of experience, and the most important thing is that she had her head on straight during the insanity of COVID lockdowns, was such a voice of reason, and really had great impact in standing for the truth, not being afraid to tell the truth and saying it over and over and over. Dr. Kelly Victory, thank you so much for being with us today. You're also a cancer survivor. You're fighting on the front lines for health and wellness. And let's start there. Let's talk about cancer, your battle, and this amazing piece, breaking. This is from Nicholas Holscher. It's the largest real-world study of ivermectin and menbendazol in cancer patients, showing 84.4% clinical benefit. Nearly half have reported that cancer has either disappeared or they've had tumor regression. Amazing report. I have the details on it. But this means something to you, Kelly, because you've had your own struggle and your own story with cancer. So I'd love to just give you the opportunity to tell everyone, how you're doing and what this type of study and these type of headlines mean for you.
Sure, absolutely. Well, as you said, I am a cancer survivor. I am currently, as I sit here before you, cancer-free and hopeful that we will stay there. I was diagnosed with breast cancer in July of 2023. Quite a surprise. It was picked up on a routine screening mammogram, something I'm pedantic about, that I got every single year. So this is something that developed in a period of 12 months,
Wow.
was very, very small. So, and I was actually recommended that we just watch it. That's probably nothing. We just watch it and recheck in 6 months. And I said, no, how about we put a needle in it today?
That's right.
I'm
Yeah.
not a sit and watch kind of a girl.
Yeah.
So, and I'm glad we did. I was very aggressive about demanding a biopsy right then. And within a couple of days found out that I, in fact, not only had cancer, but a very aggressive form
Wow.
of breast cancer.
Wow.
I subsequently had surgery and chose to do 25 rounds of radiation, which was recommended. But then I made a different choice. The protocol that was recommended to me by multiple oncologists was to start a chemotherapy regimen. And based on, my extensive background as a physician, and then the reading I was doing about this, I made a decision very quickly that that was not the route I was going to take, and that
Wow.
I was instead going to pursue what might be called alternative therapy. I look at it as just not traditional, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with chemotherapy, and I don't begrudge anybody who makes that choice, it's very, very difficult. And it's it's hard to explain when you hear that word, even as a physician, and you read it in print and say, oh my God, my worst nightmare is just unfolding. It's hard to make the right choices. Traditional chemotherapy, and by that I mean what we call cytotoxic chemotherapy, does it kill cancer cells? Absolutely, it does. The problem, Shannon, is that it kills everything in between.
Right.
It kills a lot of healthy cells. It kills a lot of your immune system. So it's sort of like saying, if I had a shotgun, could I kill that? There's a black widow spider on the wall. Black widow spiders are dangerous. If I shoot it with a shotgun, I will kill the black widow, but I'll also leave a gaping hole in the drywall, and it may never be the same even after it's repaired. That's how I think of chemo. So the brass ring in my mind was to identify a product or a group of products, a group of supplements, a group of alternate medications that we know scientifically address cancer, kill cancer specifically, or keep it from reproducing, but at the same time, don't harm any healthy cells, and in a perfect world, actually help your immune system.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, that's the path I went down. So I started taking things like ivermectin right out of the box. We'll talk more about that. I started taking supplements like berberine and ashwagandha, olive leaf, oregano oil, black seed oil, turmeric, berberine, and on, citrus pectin, all things aimed at stopping cancer cells from replicating and stopping them from ever recurring. And the way I like to think about it is you want to make your body a hostile environment for cancer.
Right.
And that's what I'm doing. So that starts with the basic things, which is that, cancer's food of choice, if you will, is sugar.
Okay.
Cancer loves sugar, loves glucose, loves anything that turns into sugar, meaning carbohydrates. So trying not to eat them, trying to eliminate those as much as possible from my diet, so as not to provide cancer with its favorite food source. And then using this combination of supplements. I am blessed to be part of the wellness company and to have a team from the very top that was open to the idea of putting together and developing a product specifically for the wellness company, this product that we call Shield.
Yeah.
It is a 2-part product, has a soft gel capsule that includes some of those items, the olive leaf and oregano oil, black seed oil, garlic, and berberine. And then there's also a cocoa mix, a powder that includes reishi and turkey tail mushrooms, ashwagandha, green tea extract. And actually, although it's intended to be used either as a hot or cold drink, I personally, on my Kelly's tip, is I mix a packet of it every single day into a carton of fat-free plain yogurt. And I make the most amazing chocolate yogurt. I eat it every night for dessert. It's fabulous. And it's chocked full of all of these immune boosting and potentially cancer killing agents. And so I love it. let's talk, shift for a second because I do want to talk about this study. Ivermectin and mebendazole, which is what the particular report, the study that you're referencing is about, they are both antiparasitics, meaning they were developed originally, both of them, to treat parasites, river blindness, intestinal parasites, worms of all sorts. Ivermectin has been FDA approved for use in humans for decades, since the early 1980s. It's taken by hundreds of millions of people around the globe every year, has an incredibly good safety profile, and happens to be relatively inexpensive.
Yep.
What certainly scientists have known for decades, but have kept hidden from the public, largely at the behest of big pharma, is that ivermectin has very strong anti-cancer properties, having nothing to do with parasites, not because cancer is a parasite or grows like a parasite, but it's simply the mechanism of action is similar in terms of how it is able to stop cancer cells from replicating and growing. Same thing with mebendazole. And the combination, it turns out, appears to be very powerful. So we have been selling a product that includes the combination of the two, both as a parasite cleanse, but also making it available to people who are cancer patients who are taking it specifically because of what we have learned about its impact potentially on cancer. And incidentally, Shannon, this can be taken whether or not you choose to do the other more traditional things. You can take it alongside of chemotherapy. You can do it along with the other regimens. So it's not an either or situation. That's what I chose to do, but you don't have to make that choice. You can do both. You can do the radiation and surgery and chemo and still avail yourself of ivermectin and mebendazole. So what we did, we actually had quite a few people who have been doing this for a period of some months. And so we at the Wellness Club, we had almost 200 patients, 197 patients. And Dr. Harvey Reish and I wrote a very simple questionnaire to query people about their experience taking this medication for cancer. Specifically, what kind of cancer did you have? Did you have any side effects from the medication, from the ivermectin mebendazole? Did those side effects change how you took it, or did you stop? And most importantly, what's the outcome been for your cancer so far? And again, this is just a self-reported study. No one is claiming this is a large randomized control trial or that this proves definitively that this is the cure for cancer. We're simply saying, what happened to your cancer? And it turns out 84% of the 197 people reported a positive outcome, meaning either complete absence of cancer, they don't have any evidence of cancer at all, or they had regression of their cancer. And then that was 48% had that, either total, like no evidence of cancer, or regression. And another 36% reported that their cancer stayed the same, meaning it didn't advance. Only 15.5% had their cancer progress. So again, pretty compelling. Now, again, these people are doing a combination. They're doing other things. Some of them are taking chemo, some did radiation, some are doing other, supplements. We don't know. All we are saying is that this study is very, very interesting because as a scientist, when you have a hunch about something, or what you would call a hypothesis, and you look at data that supports your hunch, say, whoa, isn't that interesting? It motivates you to say, we need to investigate further. This is how science is done. This is how it's supposed to happen. So we know that their preliminary findings, it was a group of 200 people, self-reported, observational study. But boy, we sure are hoping that given when you add this to the growing body of evidence people are seeing clinically, many of our colleagues are saying, I've got half a dozen patients myself on it, and they're seeing good results. We are hoping that we will get some real money behind this and be able to ultimately do that large, well-controlled study.
Yes, absolutely. Nicholas Hulsher pushed this out, and I have his report linked in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show, so you
Great.
guys can take a look at it. But yeah, 32.8% reported no evidence of the disease after taking ivermectin
Yeah.
and menbendazole. 15.6% reported tumor regression.
Hmm.
Nicholas Holcher has said there are actually 12 mechanisms of action that using ivermectin can have on all sorts of cancers. And
Hmm.
one of the, in terms of anecdotally, Dr. Victory, I've heard a lot of people report that taking the ivermectin, in addition to shrinking tumors and
Hmm.
reducing inflammation and actually stopping cancer cells from replicating, many reported that the ivermectin and menbendazole actually helped them tolerate and heal from the chemotherapy.
Yes.
Destroys everything. It protected their immune system, and some people
Yes.
even reported that they didn't even have hair loss during
Yes.
chemo, and they would attribute that to ivermectin. What are your thoughts on that? Because that's just astounding to me.
There's no question that
Yeah.
the evidence is leading up to that it actually helps chemo work better. It's actually
Right.
synergistic with it.
Yeah.
It delays chemotherapy resistance. Some cancers become resistant to the chemotherapy, and ivermectin seems to offset that. So
Mm.
there definitely seemed, and as you said, it is supporting your immune system at a time when toxic chemotherapy is trying to, is ending up ultimately killing your immune system.
Yeah.
So multiple benefits. And then there are people like me who've chosen to do only that and have not gone down the route of traditional chemotherapy and are having excellent results.
Amazing.
Interestingly, I can tell you, ivermectin has been used in the veterinary world for the treatment of cancer for decades. I had a Labrador retriever
Okay.
12 years ago who got breast cancer, and the first drug the veterinarian put me on, or put her on, was ivermectin. And this is
Unbelievable.
over a decade ago, because they don't have as much pushback from big pharma, and there aren't as many, expensive chemotherapy agents for animals as there are for people. So again, I'm not criticizing anyone's choice to go down that traditional route, but I think it's great news and very hopeful news for anybody who might be facing a cancer diagnosis, that there are other things that you can add to your quiver, other arrows you can put in your quiver, that cause far less harm, may help to support your immune system, and at the
Right.
same time fight your cancer.
Well, it's just such good news. It's such good news. And it's under that umbrella of, okay, we're not getting anything done at HHS. Fine. Maybe just a little bit. Okay. Or at the White House. But the culture is like a tsunami, right? And once
Yeah.
people figure things out and they realize this thing is killing me, this thing is curing me, there's this mechanism that kicks in. And I think it's why we're seeing these great headlines about Pfizer halting their vaccine clinical trial, and
Yeah.
they're shutting down their mRNA manufacturing plants, which is great. And then we have Wellness Company, with these two products that I just really want to focus on with you guys for a moment, and then we'll talk to you
Mm-hmm.
about BioNTech and shutting down the trials. But what I'm hearing from you, first of all, in basic prevention, the Shield, which is
Mm-hmm.
formulated that you put together, it's the cocoa mix plus the capsules.
Right.
This is a way that you can just kind of fortify your body, right,
Mm-hmm.
against the replication and the growth of cancer cells.
Absolutely. This is not just for people who have cancer. This is
Right.
an immune support. It is
Yeah,
a
that's what I'm
shield.
hearing.
It's
Yeah.
saying it's a shield to ever developing
Right.
cancer. It's
Yeah.
trying to create that environment that supports your immune system and
Right.
provides a hostile environment for
I love
cancer,
it.
where cancer never wants to take hold.
I love that. And then the ivermectin and menbendazole combo, which is
Mm-hmm.
in the parasite cleanse, which you would,
Yes.
I think the recommendation I saw, and by the way, you can get everything at twc.health slash joy. That's my page. So twc.health slash joy. And they always offer, if you use my promo code JOY, they always offer amazing discounts for the Joy audience. So the ivermectin menben is the parasite cleanse, and
Yes.
that's once a year you do it.
For it depends if you're doing it for parasites. I would suggest that people do it once, and then you probably don't have to do it for another 18-24 months.
Okay.
If you're taking it for cancer, it's a different protocol,
Right,
and
right.
people can take it for an extended period of time.
Okay. And you guys are still, you still have the second opinion and I mean, you can consult with
Mhm.
an online medical specialist, a doctor,
Yes.
and talk about kind of how you need what you
Mhm.
need, what your own personal situation is, which is
Exactly.
just amazing. It's just amazing. So guys, if you want to try those out, I am going to be doing the parasite cleanse 100. I've never done one before. I'm a little nervous.
Mhm.
It's like a medical grade. This is a big, it's a,
W-
yeah.
Well, it's interesting because we didn't really understand, I don't think, it's 10, 15 years ago, how many people might actually have parasitic disease. We always thought, or I always thought about it as sort of a third world country issue, and
Right.
never thought, well, nobody in the United States has parasites.
Yeah.
But things have changed a lot. First of all, take just the number of people who eat some sushi, eat raw food.
Right.
We have changes in our travel, the way we travel, where you go out of the country, changes in sanitation. We have a larger immigrant population here. So people are bringing in things from these other countries.
Yeah.
So lots of reasons. And there are a host of sort of these vague complaints that people have: brain fog, muscle aches,
Mm.
joint aches, easy fatigability, all of these things. And some of them may well be related to a parasite load
Right.
that is very easy to eliminate by a simple course of these two very safe, very effective, very well tolerated anti-parasitic drugs.
Right, right. Even in addition to all of that, the amount of people who have pets, multiple pets, who
Yeah,
sleep in their beds.
exactly.
I mean, I've seen all the
Right.
TikToks of them like kissing their dogs and kissing their cats. I'm like, it's actually probably worse here in the US because we are so pet focused and pet
Yes.
central. So, yes, yes, you might want to consider the parasite cleanse,
Yeah.
everyone. We're running out of time. I have to let you go, Dr. Victory. Before I do let you go, how do you feel about these great headlines? The mRNA, despite lack of action in Washington, D.C., we're seeing real signs that the COVID shots might be on the way out. Your thoughts really quickly before we wrap up.
Well, I certainly hope that they are. They were taken off of the childhood vaccine recommendation schedule by HHS,
Yep.
and pending the this court case that's going to be appealed, I'm sure, where Judge Murphy overruled that. The reality is most people understand now that children don't need these. If
Mhm.
you have a particular case, they certainly are still available. As you said, uptake, interest in these vaccines is at an all-time low. I think
Yes.
it's in the single digits, 2
Let's
3% of
go.
people
Come on
continuing
now.
to get this insanity. The idea of a vaccine where you have to get a booster every 15 minutes to make it work, it really should make you, even if you're not a scientist, you should start to say, well, I've never heard of that before. If a vaccine is so great, so effective, they shouldn't have to give you a free Slurpee to compel you to get it.
Right.
And they certainly shouldn't need liability protection. I don't know
Right.
about you, but I wouldn't buy, an iron or a toaster oven or a lawnmower that said on the outside of the box, if this thing malfunctions and kills you or your child, good luck to you.
Right.
And that's fundamentally what the vaccine manufacturers have. They need it for only one reason, and that's because many of these shots absolutely are not safe, and they
Yeah.
haven't been through the rigorous safety testing, full placebo trials that they should
Right.
have been required to do.
100%. I mean, so we're right in process here, but I think we're moving in the right direction thanks
Yeah.
to voices like yours and really amazing sponsor. I'm really thankful. I've been blessed. I know Dr. Peter McCullough so well. We've had him up here to Rochester, New York multiple times, and I've been able to meet Foster Colson and Peter Galuli and just an amazing team, including you,
Yeah.
Dr. Victory. So, building up that parallel institution, so incredibly important. Keep up the great work, and I can't wait to have you on again in hopefully a couple months to look at the news of the day. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome. And thank you guys for being with us today on the Shannon Joy Show. Make sure that you do support our sponsors, twc.health/joy. That is my URL. That's my landing page. They always have a ton of great deals for the Ask Jay audience. Just use that promo code JOY. Have a great day, guys. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again right here on the Shannon Joy Show.